It feels great to be alive, and I'm glad to be here right now. It's like a trifecta, and I feels like I won the lottery. It's April 24th, and I'm celebrating my 28th year out of the hospital today, which is an amazing feat, which we'll talk about later, or I'll talk about later. I want to say happy birthday to my mom because it's her 79th birthday. And I want to thank Care Bear, aka my sister Karen, for setting this video up. I want to thank Matt for taking the video and putting up with me for a couple hours. And thank my niece Molly for being here. And I'll try not to bore you too much, honey. So I really have lived two completely different and distinct lives in that. And it's almost like I've been two different people. One was my first life was very easy, almost silver spoon fed. And I think it was successful, but I'm much more proud of my second life. And like I said, the first life was very, ordinary in that. I was born August 30th, 1961. So I'm 53 years old now. And I was born in Beaver, Pennsylvania. But I don't remember any of Beaver except because we moved to Livonia, Michigan when I was 3 years old. But we went back to visit my grandparents and my uncles and aunts, and they lived in Pennsylvania, Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. And my parents met at Beaver Falls High School and that. So I have very fond memories of going back to Beaver Falls several times a year, actually. And that we always went in for Christmas. And um, like I said, a very, very, very fond memories of that. Um, as a kid, I always enjoyed sports, and we lived in a house that was 3 acres with woods and a creek, and so we had many, many great experiences with insect collections and snakes and frogs and um, I had a green that I cut in the backyard and so I could golf in my backyard. It was actually a perfect house that we lived in. I'm one of five children. My mom and dad, I couldn't ask for better parents. My mom was always there emotionally for us. My dad, made a great living, made our lives all better, helped get all of us through college and into our first homes and that. And actually, after I got ill, my dad and mom have kept me, going and living a good life, really. I wouldn't be here without them. I'm the middle kid of five. I have two older brothers that are 2 and 3 years older than me. I have two younger sisters that are 3 and 5 years younger than me. And that being the middle kid actually was really cool. Um, Loved all of them. Every one of us is extremely different, but I got along with every one of them, and I wouldn't trade my upbringing for anybody's because it was just really fantastic. Um, Besides the insects and snakes and that, I love sports my whole life. Basketball was probably my best sport, and volleyball, and I always looked forward to gym class. Our visits to Beaver Falls included. Um, my brothers and I went every summer to visit my grandparents and stay with them. And we used to go to Kennywood Park every year. My family also hit Cedar Point up. I've always been a huge fan of roller coasters and thrill rides. And like I said, I'm going to go back to sports for a bit because very competitive. I remember the first time I beat my brothers in one-on-one basketball, and that, I mean, it was just a big thrill for me. And I think not for them probably. Um,
How old were you
what?
when you beat them? Do you remember how old you were?
How old was I?
Yeah.
Oh God, about 15.
Okay. That's when you grew tall.
Yeah, 14 maybe. Yeah, I never lost again. Yeah. Yeah, once I beat my brothers in one-on-one basketball, it was kind of ironic because I never lost to them again. And I think, like I said, my upbringing was it was just a fantastic ride and, very easy. I liked school. My birthday being August 30th meant going back to school, though. And I was always a little bit melancholy about that because it meant summer was ending. My favorite season here, though, in Michigan is fall with the color change. Love the cider mills, college football, and the holiday seasons were always great. January and February I could do without. Not a huge fan of the winter months, and that I didn't really participate in too many winter sports. Hockey was not my forte by any means. I usually play goalie, so I'd get peppered pretty good. I went to school in 1979. I graduated from high school, and I went to U of M Dearborn, got a degree in business and finance and accounting. In 1983, I graduated. 1983 was a really whirlwind year for me. May 1st, I graduated. May 4th, I got my first full time job. June 4th, I got married. And December 1 that year, I got transferred to Dallas. I transferred to Dallas. I moved down there, as I said, December 1st, and was there for 21 months. And it was almost like being away at school. New friends, great city, actually, really, really fun city. Until uh, Brittany came along, my daughter, in 1985, and that kind of sealed our fate. Both of us, my wife and I, we missed our families greatly, and Dallas really wasn't the type of city to raise a family. We didn't feel like so. We ended up moving back. I got really lucky to get an assistant controller job on Labor Day weekend in 1985, and that's when we moved back. I actually spent less time my first 25 years talking about it because, like I said, it was very, ordinary, but, great and really easy, actually, compared to my second life. When I lived in Dallas, I had seen a chiropractor. My hands were getting numb and my feet were getting real numb, and I noticed that I was having trouble just with dexterity, and I just knew something was wrong with me, and then I kind of blew it off because I was 6'4", 200 pounds, and I was 23, 24 years old, 23 when I moved back, and I really didn't think that much of it. Waited way too long to go to the doctors and that, but I ended up going into the hospital in 1986. Well, I went in for a neurology appointment and they took a pen and poked my body, and over 2/3, 3/4 of my body did not feel the pin. And before I knew it, I was admitted into the hospital. It ended up being a tumor. I had an 18-inch tumor wrapped around my spinal cord. I went into surgery a week later, and they removed about 10 inches of the tumor, stopped because my legs stopped responding, and they went and told my family in the waiting room that they couldn't get the whole tumor because my legs had stopped moving and that. But 2 days later, my legs started kicking around a little bit, and I ended up back in for another 8-hour surgery. So it took them about 18 hours under microscope to remove an 18-inch long tumor in my spine. Coming out of the second surgery, I was in so much pain that I pretty much for the next 2 months, I remember my 25th birthday, we had a pizza party, and I was on a severe liquid restriction. I talked the doctor into drinking a pop and that because they really wanted me to keep my drinks to water and juice. And I think I was only allowed like 32 ounces a day because they wanted to get the swelling in my spinal cord. But I remember after my family left for my 25th birthday party, I prayed for the next 8 hours to die. And really over the next 2 months, every day and every night, I prayed constantly to please let the good Lord take me away, or Satan, depending on which way I was going to go. I thank God that I did not have my prayers answered at that time, because I would not have been doing this video here and be sitting here 28 years later. Like I said, I was in the hospital for 9 months. I had 6 surgeries. The easiest part for me were the 7.5 weeks that I had spinal meningitis. I remember getting really, really ill Thanksgiving Eve, and I was, throwing up all night. And on Thanksgiving Day, I remember them telling me that I was not able to go home on a weekend pass. At that point, I was in rehab, on the rehab floor in U of M Hospital, and they had let me go home for a couple weekends. But they sent me home on Friday. I have no memory at all of that until January 13th. There's like 7.5 weeks of my life that I just never remembered a minute of it. And when they took me back on Sunday, I've been told the rehab doctor said he's fine. He just pulled some muscles in his back. And at that point in time, they really thought that I had a good possibility of walking out of the hospital. My brother and my dad went to find my neurosurgeon, and they found my neurosurgeon, his name was Dr. Keith Black, and he's world famous now. It's probably my closest brush with fame. He'd be a good one to Google and see how many hits that he has, because the head of neurosurgery, Dr. McGillicuddy, was my other surgeon. And Dr. McGillicuddy told me in later years that when it's all said and done, he would have to get up, climb a ladder to be able to reach Dr. Black's hand, because Dr. Black has been that successful. And like I said, he's a world-class known neurosurgeon now. So my brother and my dad found Dr. Black, and Dr. Black came up, did a spinal tap, and spinal cord fluid came out, and instead of it being clear like spinal cord fluid should be, it was just pus and blood that came out. So I had the 7.5 weeks that I have no memory of. I told some pretty funny stories, my brother and I, we bet on all the college football games, $1 per game. And I was giving him 125 points on each game and that. And my brother, when he was done, had left, he went in the parking garage, started crying when he was in his car, and unfortunately threw the betting slip out because he's been trying to collect for 28 years now, and I won't pay him till he shows up with the betting slip. And actually, that would be a great thing to have. But I also threw my wife out of the room, I guess, and I said I was married to Karen to get the hell out of the room. But I wasn't married, talking about my sister, actually. My rehab nurse, that was my number one nurse, probably my whole hospital stay, her name was Karen. And I'm sure that's why that surfaced. But January 13th, I remember the light got turned back on. It was absolutely amazing because they had told my family that I might not have any memory at all. And I actually have been told that, my memory is actually unbelievable, how well, it works and that. And January 13th, I remember arguing with the nurse that it was November 24th because that was the last day that I remembered. My dad and mom came up the next day and put a calendar on the wall. And the 7.5 weeks of spinal meningitis, I was pretty much comatose. I really didn't move around at all in that. And it kind of sealed my fate as far as walking again, because the spinal meningitis damage after the tumor damage and the surgeries and that, it was just kind of the final stamp that, I was going to end up in a wheelchair. On April 24th, 1987, I got released from the hospital, which I honestly, I remember the day like it was yesterday. I rolled out of the hospital. I looked up at the sky. It was partly cloudy, about 55 degrees. And I remember looking up at the sky and saying, oh my God, what's the rest of my life going to be like? And then I said to myself, I'm going to eat and drink and, just live life and do what I want, without breaking any laws and that, and just, have a good time, make the best of my life and each and every day. We had a going home or a coming home party for me. And we had so many people there that we rolled my bed out into the garage, and I was in the hospital bed in the garage as we had our party. And we had moved into my first home. Actually, my ex-wife and my daughter had moved into a week after I landed in the hospital, and it was a tri-level. So my first shower experience, I don't know how she did it, but my ex-wife bounced me up the stairs in my shower chair and transferred me, and I showered upstairs. Well, that was my only trip upstairs. I never made it downstairs in a tri-level. We bought a new house, and that needed to be renovated and made handicap accessible, and that's where I'm living now still. And there was like a 4 or 5 month period where we were in the tri-level. So I had to find out a way. I wasn't going to go 4 or 5 months without a shower, obviously. So we ended up hooking up a hose to the kitchen sink, and we rolled me out the front door, and I showered in the garage. But showering in the garage and sleeping in the hospital bed in my living room was 1,000% better than being in the hospital. And the 8.5, 9 months stay in the hospital, the only good thing I can say about it really is it made me really, really strong. It was just a battle to make it to the next day. And my quality of life and that, was what I was worried about. But I don't know. There's not too many people that make it 9 months in the hospital and get released. But if you're in the hospital for 9 months, you're just glad to not be there anymore. And like I said, showering in the garage wasn't a big deal. It was kind of funny. I'd put a towel over me and I'd wave to the neighbors as I was going out the front door. And it was just a joy to be home again. I really decided at that point that my daughter, I was going to spend every minute that I could with her. And she was really my best friend. I mean, she would hop in my hospital bed. We'd read together. We'd play together. And I, when I left the hospital, my goal was to make it 2 to 3 years to try to get to an age where Brittany would have some memory of me. And actually, the 2 to 3 years was somewhat of a lofty goal because of all the infections I got. And I got osteomyelitis in my elbow. I had severe UTIs. And I really had several brushes with death. Actually, my doctor last year counted at least 8, and he was only halfway through my chart, and he quit counting at 8. So Brittany and I, like I said, we were best of friends in that, and I was very fortunate that I had gone in the hospital and I was going to get a spinal fusion. And I went in, I got a halo on, and I had the halo on for a week. They changed the surgery procedure on me, and when we talked about the procedure, when I saw the doctor, he was going to go in through my neck to do the surgery. And then on day 5 of having the halo, he changed and told the students, he explained the second surgery, they were going to have to open up my rib cage, which would expose my heart, and they were going to have to move a lung over to get over to the back of my spine. And it was going to increase the risk of the surgery. The death risk was going up 20%. When I heard that on day 5, I told them day 6, after talking with my ex-wife and a lot of my family, I decided that the surgery was way too risky, and they took the halo off day 7. I went home. One of the things I have to say too, a lot of the departments at U of M hospital were great. A lot of them, boy, I could tell some horror stories, but I don't think we have enough time for that. They sent me home with no pain medication at all. A doctor that was a friend of my parents' neighbor in Florida, their son was a doctor at U of M, and he hooked me up with a pain clinic, and they put me on some prescriptions that, at least made me able to get up in the wheelchair and be up for more than 4 hours at a time. And actually, I started to really live life at that point. A few weeks after that, we went to Florida and stayed at my parents' condominium and took a trip over to Disney World. And Disney World's played a huge part in my life. Their handicapped rooms were great. And they're basically, except for one story that I'll tell, I've had, very good to great experiences there. My dad's 60th birthday party. We also have a DVD of this that we'll have to distribute with this DVD. My dad had absolutely no idea, but we surprised him for his 60th birthday party, and he was so stunned. We thought that, well, one of my nephews went up to him and asked him, "Granddad, are you having a heart attack?" And that's actually in the video. And my dad was so stunned because we had 2 3-month-old babies. And my dad at that point didn't know that I could fly in that, because we flew down that time. And the van was driven down by my brother-in-law and sister. We also, in addition to surprising my dad for his 60th birthday, we also surprised both my mom and dad for 70th birthday. Yeah. I was looking for my sister for help on that one, but
It said you have a way better memory than me.
What?
He does. Your memory, I should remember, but I don't remember
Really?
what it was. Yeah, really.
yeah. Remember we were underneath
No,
the
I remember the awning, but
The
I don't
awning
remember
part?
what that was for.
Yeah, we surprised mom and dad both for that one.
Yeah.
So that one, Matt, I felt so bad. There was a lady breastfeeding, and we had how many, Care?
Oh.
25?
There's a lot of us.
We had about 25. And we knew my parents were going to be going over the ESPN club, so there were like 25 of us underneath the awning. And I look over, I go, "Uh-oh, I don't think." And that was a little bit before. I think
Right.
now it's not as big of a deal in that, but so we surprised my dad on his 60th birthday. We surprised both my mom and dad for 70th birthday. People always ask me what my scariest rides have been in that, and what coaster I liked best. Well, my first scary ride, it was all my doing. I was up north, and I was on a deck, and I think I had maybe a half a beer too much, but I thought it'd be a good idea to see if I could be Evel Knievel. You'll have to Google that one too. But I went off the deck full steam, and I hit sand, and the chair stopped, but unfortunately I did not. So I flew out of the chair and ended up rolling, and I was about 15 feet away by the time I stopped rolling. I wanted to cry, to be honest. I wanted to cry so bad, and I was like, if somebody finds me crying right now, that is going to be so uncool. And I decided I better make myself look like I'm doing something. So I sat up, took my shirt off, spun around so I was facing the sun to make it look like I was trying to get a tan. Well, a couple walked up, and I have never ever been so happy to see a stocky woman along with her stocky husband, because they ended up asking me if I needed any help, and I jokingly said, "No, I'm just grabbing a tan, catching a tan." And they actually, lifted me up, got me back into the wheelchair. And so I would say that was my second scariest ride. And like I said, that was up north on vacation. My scariest ride, and this is a shock to everybody, It's a Small World at Disney World. And people look at me like, how can It's a Small World be your scariest ride ever? Well, I was on the boat, and when they put me on the boat, I was in a large wheelchair, and they couldn't get me to a lower level, so they kept me on the highest level of the boat. Well, we go about 30, 40 feet, and I realize, I look up, and there's a bridge that is down at my shoulder level. And if I saw the bridge, I was on the ride. My mom and my 3-year-old daughter were sitting in the front, And my dad and my ex-wife sat that one out, but I realized that if I didn't recline and recline real quick, I was either going to be decapitated or my wheelchair would have tipped over backwards when I got a facial on the bridge. So I reclined, as quick as I could, and fortunately made it by about 3-4 inches. And that we got off the ride, and there was a long line, but my mom went down to the front of the line and told them what almost happened. And not to our surprise, but next year when we went back, well, I sat out when a couple people did It's a Small World, but they made you, at that point, I actually changed the rules on It's a Small World because they no longer allowed wheelchairs. You had to transfer to another chair, to one of their wheelchairs. And then, like I said, there was a lower level, and they had the wheelchairs go down on the lower level. So It's a Small World, scary ride, don't go on it. Well, at least not in a wheelchair and be on the top level. The year after, it would have been when Brittany was 3 and 4, we ended up spending 7 and 8 weeks down in Florida and at my parents' condominium. And just, you know what, it was a great time to get out of Michigan. We, would fish. We go down on the pier, and my mom and dad was there for most of the time, but they would fish, and my dad would stay out fishing longer than we did. And then my mom and Brittany and I, we'd go over and get a foo-foo drink, a strawberry daiquiri or pina colada. In 1992, I became a bachelor again. The only sad part about that was Brittany, actually, and that. But I had never lived alone, and living alone was so good for my psyche, and that I could do it and do it successfully, and that. And I made a lot of new friends. I got way, way closer with my siblings, my mom and dad, and really, like I said, except for Brittany, nothing. It was a very good thing for me, and I've had a lot of great times since then. Not that I didn't have a lot of great times with the married life too, but anyhow, so I did have roommates move in, and I had people, 2 friends live with me, one from 93 to 97, another one from 97 to 99. But I've been living on my own now for 16 years, which I'm very proud of. And the doctors and nurses, last time I was in the hospital, they were kind of shocked that I do live alone and that. But like I said, I'm very proud of that, and it's very good to be independent and to be able to do that. I do have home health aides come in, and I had to give a shout out to Nick, AK, Shifty, Kim, Julie, and Christy are my 4 helpers right now, and I love them to death, and that, and vice versa too. My escape over the years, huge classic rock fan, and I played music every day, and that I've been to over 300 concerts, and I really, a short list. I love the late 60s and 70s, the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, and I don't know, The Who, and the list just goes on and on and on. I have about 700 CDs in my collection, and I have a DVD player that has probably about 200 DVDs that are music, and probably another 100 or so that are actually movies. My 40th birthday, my family threw me a surprise party, which was awesome. I went out my back door, and there were about 40 people there, to surprise me and that. And my birthday was a couple weeks away, and I should have suspected it actually because there were some slips, but because it was a couple weeks before my birthday, I really did not, catch on in that. But the big surprise and one of the greatest days of my life was my 50th surprise party. My brother set it up, and we had a bus and 44 people, and the lift on the bus did not work, and my brother had to call and tell the company that they better send a bus over real quick and get it there. So they ended up over at my brother's, and where my dad used to work. He owned a business, and my brothers took it over, and my brothers got other ventures too, and that. So we went over, and I was expecting a few people because we were going to go see Alice Cooper, which was the first album I ever bought, and that in like sixth grade. And I remember sixth grade when we had to dress up on the last day of school. I actually put on the eye makeup and went as Alice Cooper. So we got to my brother's work, and that's where we were meeting up. And there was a bus and 44 friends and family members, which all of them are friends too, waiting for me. So we ended up having dinner at the VIP club, went to the concert, and honestly, like I said at the beginning, it was one of the greatest days of my life. It was just absolutely fantastic. My escape for years and years was listening to music, and the 300 plus concerts I went to. I don't know, I ended up 4 years ago, I'm losing my hearing in that, and really strange because they said my hearing loss wasn't due to excessive noise, but going to sleep every night and set your timer on 60 minutes with the volume up 3/4 of the way, probably not very good for your ears, I would guess. But like I said, I don't know. My one doctor said to throw the medical textbooks out the window with me because I don't think I mentioned before the tumor that I had was a 1 in 13 million. It was an astrocytoma, and that actually is most commonly found in the brain and later on in years. And as I said earlier, it was wrapped around my spinal cord, and I waited, way too long, and that's how it got to 18 inches long. But anyhow, my initial goal was to see my daughter, go to kindergarten and that. And a little bit over 7 years ago, I became a grandfather, which was just absolutely amazing. Grace is now 7.5 years old in second grade. And I don't know, she just puts a smile on my face just thinking of her, just like my daughter and that. And thankfully, I'm very close with my daughter still. We talk a couple times a week on the phone and see each other a couple times a month and that. And Grace is just such a joy. And this past January, another granddaughter, Hazel, she's only 3 months old, so she scares the hell out of me. Too small, and I'm afraid of fumbling her, so I haven't really got that much of enjoyment out of her, except I love to watch her. I love to watch other people hold her. But besides for photo ops, I'll hold her for, maybe 30 seconds or so, but then I pass her off option right and that.
Aaron.
So,
Option right.
one of the huge joys, though, I mean, my daughter and my granddaughters and that, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, considering, the doctors, I mean, I did it against all odds and that, and, to have granddaughter go to kindergarten, and like I said, she's in second grade now, and that when my goal was to see my daughter go to kindergarten. To me, it's phenomenal, really. One of the other real joys in my life, my nieces and nephews, I have to mention. I have 14 of them, 16 counting nephew that married one of my nieces, and then I have also another niece and that. So I'm really up to 16 now, 14 blood relatives, and then the two that married in. So one of my favorite things, I love the Brazilian steakhouse. And this past week, I took my 14th niece and nephew, so all 14 of them have gone to the Brazilian steakhouse with me. And so obviously, I guess that leads into me not being a vegetarian because they have like 13 different meats to pick from at lunch and 16 for dinner. But like I said, I've introduced all 14 of them to the Brazilian steakhouse, and we have a blast at Gaucho's. It's been one of many things that's been a delight with my nieces and nephews. I also took my one brother's son to his first concert, Aerosmith. We were at a Michigan football game that day, so we did the football game and took his son to the concert. Fortunately and unfortunately, we missed a 67-yard touchdown pass on the last play of the game to beat Michigan. And I was sitting in my brother's driveway listening to it on the radio and not even really paying attention and that when it happened. But I remember at Aerosmith, I got a sore neck because I was shaking my head and I didn't see the play, but I watched it a few times that night. It's actually a pretty famous play. It was Michigan, Colorado. I don't remember the exact year, but in the probably early 90s, probably 93, 94. I also, all my nieces and nephews have experienced concerts with. I've mentioned that my one, brother's son, we took him to his first concert. Most of them have been to Pink Floyd laser shows with me, and really the concerts with the kids and that. And my daughter has gone also. It's just been, absolutely spectacular. So not only did my daughter get old enough, I don't think she's going to get too mad at me, but she is turning 30 next month, and she told me we're not allowed to celebrate it. But I'm going to celebrate it anyhow. Last weekend, I went and saw my neighbor at a nursing home or assisted living, actually, and she's turning 99 3 days later. So she didn't want to celebrate her birthday, and Brittany doesn't want to celebrate her birthday. So I'm going to go see Gert on Brittany's birthday and celebrate Brittany's 30th birthday with my former 98-year-old neighbor. Well, she's a former neighbor, not former 98-year-old neighbor. Just last month, actually, we took Shifty and we took one of my nephews and his friend to a Pink Floyd tribute band, and we got the last 4 tickets for the show and that, and we had a blast at that. I mentioned that my hearing's going. It was the first time in 4 years I haven't wore earplugs at the concert, and concerts are a lot better when you can hear them. I remembered, that seems like the most obvious statement in the world, but after wearing earplugs for 4 years, I got there and it wasn't too loud and we were a little late, and we just had, just a great night out. And the concert itself, not wearing the hearing aids, I'm not going to do it, or not hearing aids, the earplugs. I'm not going to do it often, but once or twice a year for the rest of my life, I am going to hit up a show just to enjoy it and to be able to hear it and that. So the Aerosmith concert was with Nick, who's Ron's oldest son. And like I said, that was his first concert. And Ron and I pulled the double feature that day with the Michigan Colorado game. Last month was with Ben. Ben became my Pink Floyd buddy. We went to Roger Waters' The Wall show, and we had actually Elizabeth and Tim Jr., and it was one I remember at the intermission. Tej came up to me and just said, "Wow, this is unbelievable." And the look on Elizabeth's face was just unbelievable. Ben was with his dad and mom that went at that show. Molly has been to numerous shows with me, and she's my little buddy to go out and party with. Well, we don't really party, but in our own way. And Molly's been the Trans-Siberian Orchestra with us. What else, honey?
You go the Pink Floyd
We've been
laser
alive.
show.
The Pink Floyd. I went to Alice Cooper, but that was everyone.
Alice Cooper, Pink Floyd, laser show.
Yeah, Alice
See
Cooper.
Trans once or twice.
Molly's been to Trans-Siberian Orchestra, the Pink Floyd Laser Show, just numerous. The Alice Cooper concert, I remember Molly coming over when they had a 20-foot Frankenstein on stage, and she said, "Uncle Mike, this is the coolest thing ever." And I just admire her because she has a good time no matter what she does. And I think that's the way that really everybody should, experience life. I don't remember exactly, the nieces and nephews and what shows we've seen, but every one of them was at the Alice Cooper show for my 50th birthday party, and there's been numerous other shows too that they've gone to with me. Every day to me is like topping on ice cream when you're expecting to live, 2 to 3 years at the most, and you're sitting here 28 years later. It's been an amazing roller coaster ride, and I keep on saying how I'm going around the last turn of the roller coaster, but that last turn lasted about 25 years now, I was talking with my brother Tim. I said it's like the Thunderbolt at Kennywood that I mentioned earlier also. My doctor, my pain clinic doctor that prescribes the medication for me, he told his intern last year that Michael really shouldn't be with us right now. And some of my family kind of said, "Is that even a proper thing to say?" But the intern, after he went through my history, she was just shaking her head, and just said, it's, been an amazing, ride, and way more, highs and lows in that. And I'm not just saying that because of the medications I'm on. Now, I have to do a shout out to my doctor, 34 years. It's Dr. Trevax, and he's the one that said to me, throw all the medical textbooks out the window with me because I got a 1 in 13 million tumor, but he told me this past November that it's millions to one that I'm still alive. And I mean, I've always thought that the doctors, are saying that to me without me prompting them at all. He also told my mom that the worst day of his career was when he found out from U of M Hospital what was wrong with me. Jeffrey, when I became a grandfather, wrote me a congratulations, and he even addressed it himself. The amazing thing is with doctors writing, and it was pretty bad, but it made it here. So he's a dear friend, love the guy. He's gone through the whole roller coaster ride with me, and we spend, he doesn't see any patients on Wednesday, but every year in the fall, we make an appointment, a 2 hour appointment, and he sees me for 2 hours, and he does a little bit of a physical on me as much as he can do with me in the wheelchair, but we end up talking for about an hour and a half, and he examines me for a half hour, and then I usually head over to the cider mill and to the deli. I'm a huge deli fan and also a cider mill fan actually. But I don't know. In conclusion, I think every day you should try to make the best, be the best you can be. I try to make somebody laugh, smile, or provide inspiration to somebody each and every day, and usually I accomplish that, or at least I think I do. Um, every night I want every single person that I love, I want them to go to bed. And if they think about me, I want them to know that they love me. And I'll take that back. I want them to know that I love them. And of course, I would like that to know that they love me also. Um, extremely blessed to be here. My daughter, love her to death. My granddaughters, like I said, my nieces, nephews, my family, just fantastic. And that I don't have a huge amount of friends, but the friends that I have, very close, very tight with me. And then I would rather really have a smaller amount of great friends than, a huge amount of friends that don't care about you or don't really, come around or whatever. And I really want people to visit me and to do things with me, not because out of obligation or because they're family members. I really want them to want to come over. I want them to enjoy me, enjoy their life with me. And I hope that I do accomplish that. So I did say in summation once, but I'm going to say it one more time. I I don't know if I'm going to die tomorrow or 10 years from now, but either way, I know I've made it.